Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive today. We're diving into something pretty sensitive.
Mm,
President-elect Trump's cabinet picks specifically those facing allegations of sexual misconduct.
right.
And we want to be clear upfront that we are committed to presenting everything factually and without any bias.
Yes.
We'll be looking at a few individuals named in our source article: Matt Gaetz, Pete Hegseth, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Linda McMahon, and Elon Musk.
Right. And I think to really grasp the situation, we got to start with Trump's own history
Mm.
for these kinds of allegations. I mean, there are dozens of accusations going all the way back to the 70s.
Yeah, and he's been pretty vocal defending others facing similar accusations, like back in 2018.
Hmm.
He tweeted, "People's lives are being shattered and destroyed by a mere allegation. Some are true and some are false, some are old and some are new. There is no recovery for someone falsely accused. Life and career are gone. Is there no such thing any longer as due process?" So, it seems like this history of defending the accused could be a factor in his cabinet choices.
It's a pattern we're thinking about for sure. I mean, does this point to a specific approach to these allegations, or is it just coincidence? And what's really interesting is how this might affect public perception of these nominees, regardless of the legal outcomes.
Okay, let's start with Matt Gaetz. He's nominated for Attorney General, a position that really needs public trust.
Right.
But he's connected to Joel Greenberg, who actually pleaded guilty to sex trafficking of a minor in 2021.
Yeah, and that connection triggered investigations by both the Justice Department and the House Ethics Committee into those allegations against Gaetz himself. There were even reports of 3 eyewitnesses saying they saw Gaetz with a minor.
Wow, that's serious.
Yeah.
But the Justice Department actually closed their investigation without any charges, and Gaetz resigned from the House before the Ethics Committee even released their findings.
And through it all, Gaetz is denied doing anything wrong. So we're left with this cloud of suspicion hanging over him, even though nothing was legally resolved.
Hmm.
It makes you wonder how this will affect his ability to lead the very department responsible for upholding the law.
Exactly. Now let's move on to another controversial figure: Pete Hegseth, Trump's pick for the Department of Defense.
Okay.
He was accused of sexual assault by a staff member at the California Federation of Republican Women back in 2017.
Yeah, and then in 2020, when he was facing potential legal action, Hegseth paid her an undisclosed amount as part of a non-disclosure agreement. He still says the encounter was consensual and denies the accusations, but it does make you wonder about these agreements being used to silence potential victims.
Definitely adds another layer to it. How do you think the public will react to someone leading the military with this kind of baggage? Can he really maintain the authority and respect needed for that role?
That's a huge point. The Department of Defense relies so much on public trust and confidence. These allegations, true or not, could really hurt his ability to lead effectively and make those tough decisions.
Okay, so now let's look at Robert F. Kennedy Jr., nominated for the Department of Health and Human Services.
Right.
He was accused of sexual assault by Eliza Cooney, who he hired to babysit his children in the late 90s.
Yeah. Cooney went public with her story in an interview with Vanity Fair in 2024. She gave specific details about Kennedy rubbing her leg, asking for a back rub, and then groping her. It's a disturbing picture she paints.
And what did Kennedy say about it all?
Well, he called the Vanity Fair article garbage, but he did admit to not being a church boy.
Huh,
He also sent Cooney a text message.
really?
In the message, he said he didn't remember the incident but apologized for anything that made her feel uncomfortable. He even said, "I never intended you any harm. If I hurt you, it was inadvertent. I feel badly for doing so."
It's a strange response.
Yeah.
He's basically saying he doesn't remember, but admits he might have acted inappropriately. How do you make sense of that?
It's definitely carefully worded. He's not denying the accusations outright, but he's also not taking full responsibility. It's ambiguous, and while that might work sometimes when you're in charge of public health and well-being, it can raise doubts about your judgment and character.
I see. Now let's talk about Linda McMahon, who's been tapped to lead the Department of Education. She's well known for her time with WWE, which she started with her husband, Vince McMahon.
Right, and that background has come under scrutiny because of a lawsuit alleging they created a work environment at WWE that allowed sexual assault of underage boys back in the 80s and 90s.
This so-called Ring Boys scandal was even featured in that Netflix docuseries Mr. McMahon earlier this year.
Oh, wow.
And it's important to mention that McMahon has a long history with the Trump administration. She headed the Small Business Administration during his first term, then she led America First Action, a pro-Trump super PAC, and now chairs the America First Policy Institute. So she's definitely been a loyal supporter.
It seems that loyalty and her experience within Trump's circle earned her this big role. But those allegations against her and her husband raise serious concerns about her being in charge of the education of our kids.
And last but not least, we have Elon Musk, who's teaming up with Vivek Ramaswamy, the 2024 Republican presidential candidate, to lead the Department of Government Efficiency. He's obviously known for being the CEO of SpaceX,
Right.
but he's also facing a lawsuit from 8 former employees who say they were wrongfully fired after reporting sexual harassment.
The lawsuit claims Musk exposed employees to unwanted conduct and comments of a sexual nature and offensive content that degraded women and the LGBTQ+ community.
These are serious accusations. They paint a pretty bad picture of the work environment at SpaceX. How did Musk respond to these claims?
Well, in 2022, he posted on X, the platform he owns, a pretty flippant remark. Finally, we get to use Elongate as scandal name. It's kind of perfect.
Wow, that's a surprising reaction to such serious allegations. It almost seems like he's dismissing how serious the situation is.
Yeah, it's definitely a concerning response. You'd think someone facing these kinds of accusations would take them more seriously, especially given his proposed role in promoting government efficiency. This kind of behavior could easily erode public trust and make it harder for him to lead effectively.
It's fascinating how these allegations against Trump's cabinet picks show this recurring theme of power dynamics. In each case, you have people in positions of authority accused of misconduct, and there's often a pattern of denial or downplaying the accusations.
Yeah, absolutely. And it raises those big questions about how we as a society address these issues. How do we make sure people are held accountable when those in power are the ones accused of doing wrong? How do we protect the rights of both the accused and the accuser? We're really in uncharted territory here. I mean, having a president-elect appoint people facing these serious allegations to such important positions, it's unprecedented.
Yeah, it really raises the question, how much weight do these accusations actually hold? I mean, legally, they're just allegations, and everyone deserves to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, right?
Of course. Of course. But we can't just ignore these allegations. They need to be taken seriously and investigated thoroughly. The public deserves to know if the people leading their government are fit for the job.
So where do we draw the line then? How do these allegations affect the confirmation process? Will they face more scrutiny from the Senate, or will the current political climate just let it slide?
It's hard to say. The political landscape is so divided these days, it's possible things will just fall along party lines. Some senators might say the allegations are just political attacks, while others might demand full transparency and a complete investigation.
This whole situation really highlights that tension between protecting the rights of the accused and holding those in power accountable. It's a tough balance.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that these allegations can have lasting effects on the victims, even if no charges are ever filed. Coming forward with these accusations is incredibly difficult and often comes at a personal and professional cost.
That's a really important point. We need to create an environment where victims feel safe and supported to come forward, knowing they'll be taken seriously and their allegations will be thoroughly investigated.
I completely agree. The focus needs to shift from just protecting the accused to making sure justice is served for everyone involved, both the accused and the accuser.
So how do these allegations fit into the bigger conversation about sexual misconduct and accountability, especially when it involves people in power? Is this situation just a reflection of a larger problem in our society?
It definitely sheds light on a cultural shift that needs to happen. For too long, sexual misconduct has been swept under the rug, especially when it involves powerful people. We need to move towards a zero-tolerance culture where allegations are taken seriously, investigations are done fairly and openly, and consequences are enforced no matter who you are or what your position is.
And that conversation needs to go beyond the government. It needs to happen everywhere.
Absolutely. We need to challenge the power structures that allow sexual misconduct to flourish and create a culture where everyone feels safe and respected.
This leads to another question. Where do we go from here? What concrete steps can we take to address these issues and prevent this from happening again? What are some potential solutions?
One crucial step is to improve the ways people can report these incidents and make sure victims have access to support and resources. We also need to invest in education and training programs to prevent sexual harassment and misconduct from happening in the first place.
And what about holding those in power accountable? How can we make sure there are real consequences for their actions?
That's the big question, isn't it? We need clear and consistent rules of conduct for those in positions of power, and we need ways to investigate allegations thoroughly and fairly. But most importantly, we need to create a culture where those in power are held responsible for their actions no matter how high up they are.
That's a big goal, but it's essential if we want to create a truly fair and just society.
I completely agree. It requires a collective effort, but I think we can create a future where Sexual misconduct is no longer tolerated, and everyone feels safe and respected.
This deep dive has definitely given us a lot to think about. It's clear that these allegations against Trump's cabinet picks raise some serious questions about the incoming administration's commitment to dealing with sexual misconduct and accountability.
You're right. It remains to be seen how these allegations will play out and what impact they'll have on the confirmation process. But one thing is certain. This conversation is far from over.
It'll be interesting to see how things develop. We'll continue to follow the story and keep you updated. But for now, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned today. What stands out to you as particularly important or thought-provoking?
What I find really striking is the sheer number of people facing these allegations.
Okay.
It really emphasizes how widespread sexual misconduct is and how hard it is to confront. It's a problem that affects every part of society, and it's obvious we need to do more to prevent it and hold those responsible accountable.
That's a great point. And we can't forget that these allegations represent the experiences of real people whose lives have been affected by what happened. Their voices deserve to be heard, and their stories need to be taken seriously.
I couldn't agree more. We need to shift our focus from protecting the powerful to supporting the vulnerable and creating a world where everyone feels safe and respected.
It's a difficult but essential goal, and one that I hope we can all work towards. But for now, we have to wrap up this part of our deep dive. Wow, we've covered a lot today. It feels like these allegations against Trump's cabinet picks really open up a whole can of worms about power, accountability, and justice.
Yeah, what's really striking to me is how these cases highlight a bigger societal issue. It's not just about the accusations themselves, it's about how we as a society handle these kinds of allegations, especially when powerful people are involved.
It's like we're being forced to face some uncomfortable truths about our systems and values.
Exactly. It's a moment of reckoning where we have to reevaluate what's important to us and how committed we are to building a fair and just society. We can't keep ignoring these issues.
You know, the concept of due process keeps coming to mind. It's a fundamental part of our legal system, and for good reason. But how do we balance protecting the rights of the accused with the need to support victims and make sure people are held accountable?
That's the tough question, isn't it?
Hmm.
Due process is crucial to ensure things are fair and prevent innocent people from being convicted. But the traditional legal system isn't always the best way to handle the complexities of sexual misconduct cases.
Yeah, that's true. Power dynamics, the fear of retaliation, the difficulty of proving these kinds of allegations, it all adds layers of complexity that the legal system might not always be able to handle effectively.
And we can't forget about the impact on the people who come forward with accusations. They often face so much scrutiny and public shaming. Their reputations are damaged, even if their allegations are believable.
It really makes you think we need a system that supports and protects victims while also upholding fairness and due process for everyone.
If we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it becomes clear that this isn't just about Trump's cabinet. It's about the kind of world we want to create. A world where power isn't abused, where victims are heard and believed, and where justice actually prevails.
That's a powerful way to frame it. It's easy to get lost in the political drama, but we have to step back and consider the implications for society as a whole.
This brings up a crucial question for all of us. What can we each do individually and together to create a more just and equitable world? How can we contribute to a culture that doesn't tolerate abuse of power and actually supports those who've been hurt?
That's the question we'll leave our listeners with. It's a complex problem without easy solutions, but it's a conversation we all need to be a part of.
I agree completely. By having these difficult conversations, challenging our own assumptions, and holding ourselves and our leaders accountable, we can start to create real change.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into President-elect Trump's cabinet picks and the allegations surrounding them. We hope this conversation has given you some things to think about and maybe even inspired you to take action in your own way.
And until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep working towards a better world for everyone.